Who's the best Denver Broncos player to wear each number? We're diving into that this week here on DenverBroncos.com. Phil Milani alongside Eric Dalala. We're going to take a look at three numbers in particular, Eric, starting with the number 14.
Yeah, Phil, lots of options here. Obviously, Courtland Sutton, the current wearer of number 14, but you've also got Brandon Stokley and Brian Griese among kind of the top competitors for that number. Which way do you go?
I went with Courtland Sutton, and I'll explain my reason here. I think that you have to do a little bit of projecting, but Sutton, 10 career touchdowns in just 2 seasons, was already a Pro Bowler. I think that if you take that and project it out to a full career, he'll eventually be the best Broncos player to ever wear number 14. Brandon Stokley had a great career. I think everybody would be happy playing 15 seasons in the NFL, almost 400 catches. But if you look at his first 2 seasons, he only had 3 touchdowns. So to tell you, that kind of gives you an example of what Sutton's been able to do his first 2 seasons in the league. And plus, considering that Stokley played many seasons with a guy named Peyton Manning, I think that helps too.
That's true. Though some would argue, Phil, that Drew Lock, he's on a nice trajectory himself. I'm actually going to go with Brian Griese here. I think everything you said about Courtland Sutton is absolutely true. And I think if we look back 5 years from now and we have this same debate, Courtland Sutton is going to be far and away the best player to ever wear number 14 for the Broncos. But right now, Phil, which is when we're having this conversation, Brian Griese's accomplished a little bit more at 5 seasons in Denver. The unenviable task of replacing John Elway. He ended up making a Pro Bowl in 2000. And listen, he didn't end up being a franchise guy moving forward, but a respectable career in Denver. Obviously stays close with the Broncos now. And I think just based on what he accomplished as a whole, right now gives him a little bit of an edge over both Stokley and Sutton.
Yeah, that 2000 season was nice. 19 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on his way to the Pro Bowl. But I think that it's okay to project out a little bit and assume that Sutton will continue on his path. And I think that eventually he'll become the greatest Bronco to ever wear number 14. Eric, I'm a little bit afraid to do the next number.
Yeah, me too.
15. Tim Tebow. Tebow mania. No doubting what he was able to do wearing a Broncos uniform. Revitalized the fan base here on that magical run in 2011. But I think that you and I are going in a different direction.
Yeah, Phil, and I actually went with Jim Turner, the longtime place kicker for the Denver Broncos. He's a Ring of Famer, the only guy who wore this number that can say that. Just in Denver for a really long time. And again, I look at kind of that sustained success for a lot of these. For a long time was the Broncos' all-time leading scorer until Jason Elam passed him. So it's hard to look past that as his career accomplishments and say that he's not the best player to wear 15.
Sorry, did you say a field goal kicker?
I did say that, Phil. I did.
Okay, sorry. I thought, over Zoom, the connection sometimes doesn't work.
There's a few of those on my list, actually.
I went with Brandon Marshall because I think that his God-given ability, I think he might be one of the best naturally gifted wide receivers to enter the NFL. And he had 4 tremendous seasons in Denver, was a 4th-round pick, but really emerged as a number 1 wideout. Made it to 2 Pro Bowls in Denver, but had a lot of success over the course of his career. A first-team All-Pro in 2012, had 83 career touchdowns. I think that, and you consider the quarterbacks that he was playing with, Jay Cutler, Kyle Orton, to be able to have that kind of success, he was just a monster out there on the field. And I know that he worked really closely with Rod Smith, and Rod really helped his career come along. And Brandon Marshall, some of the plays that he made, that Dallas touchdown where he broke 1 million tackles and made it into the end zone. I'm not sure how many wide receivers to ever play the game could do something like that.
Yeah, so you're kind of going with potential again, because I think Brandon Marshall is one of the all-time Broncos who you say, what if? What if he had been here much longer? What could he have done? Whereas I'm going with the proven guy again. I mean, Phil, there's a lot of guys on this roster that if you want to start projecting, we can just pencil Drew Lock in at number 3 if you want.
Yeah, you want to do number 10?
Yeah. I would just put Judy in there now.
Yeah, there you go. I think that you just got to look at the whole picture. I know what he's capable of doing, and so therefore I think he's the best to wear that number. Although hopefully we didn't offend any Tebow fans out there.
I'm sure we did.
Bring on the comments, baby.
Exactly.
Eric, let's move on to our final number. That's number 87.
Yeah, Phil, and in some ways, this is perhaps the most competitive spot because you've got Ed McCaffrey, you've got Rich Tombstone Jackson, you've got Lionel Taylor. Two of those guys, obviously, in Jackson and Taylor, are Ring of Famers. A lot of people think Ed McCaffrey should be in the Broncos Ring of Fame. I think it's hard here, though, to go against Lionel Taylor. Just the numbers that he put up, led the AFL in receiving 5 out of the first 6 seasons that the league was in its existence. A 3-time All-AFL player, just so good. And so it's hard to pick anybody else there for 87.
Yeah, you can't really knock any of these guys who wore that. I mean, when your name is Tombstone, I think you just got to acknowledge and respect.
Well, my style of play is more or less the style of my arm, and it's more or less an aggressive style. And I just like to hit people, and I like to go hard, and I try to keep myself in superb condition in that it would allow me to go hard on every play.
Was a tremendous player, really went after quarterbacks and was a 3-time All-Pro kind of guy. You mentioned Lionel Taylor. Lionel Taylor entered the NFL with the Bears as a linebacker, and then the next year became one of the best wide receivers in professional football. So a tremendous career, finished his career the leader in several categories for the Broncos. But I'm going to go with Ed McCaffrey for this one, just because I got to see Ed play, one of the most reliable wide receivers I've seen. He didn't have any fear, Eric. You take a look at some of these hits that he had. I mean, the man just did whatever it took to get the ball. Played 9 seasons in Denver, won 2 Super Bowls, which neither of the other 2 gentlemen we mentioned can say. He went to 1 Pro Bowl and had 46 career touchdowns. So I do think it's time that Ed McCaffrey gets inducted into the Broncos Ring of Fame, and he'll get his day there, I think, eventually. But just one of the best guys that you'll ever meet, and I saw it with my own 2 eyes. And,
That's true. I know it's going to be hard. This is an emotional decision for you, Phil, so it's going to be hard to convince you otherwise. But, you could argue that Lionel Taylor should be a senior candidate for the Hall of Fame.
That is true. Lionel Taylor was a tremendous player. I just can't imagine playing one position and then switching like that. It's truly amazing. Obviously, we're talking about Broncos top 100 kind of guys here. So a lot of respect to all of these players. But you got to pick somebody.
That's true. Who'd you have for 7, Phil?
Well, it came down to Craig Morton and John Elway, and I think I went with the Duke.
As did I. A good choice.
Yeah, exactly. Any other big numbers that maybe we skipped over?
This was a hard exercise, Phil. I went through every guy on the roster, and I was always happy when I got to a 7, an 18, an 84. Those were some easy ones.
Yeah, exactly. Hall of Famers. You can go ahead and check that one out. All right, well, make sure you check that out on DenverBroncos.com, the full list. These are just our opinions. Let us know if you agree or disagree. For Eric,